place where real dialogue matters. It is time to take flight with Audio Airstrike.
What's up, everybody? This is Everett, Hall-McNeill, and this is Audio Airstrike. Thank you for joining us once again. It's been an impactful week. Hopefully, it was impactful for you as well. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Now, this is episode 148, and I have a special guest with me at this time. He is the founder of Cityfam, but he's also the author of Why Waiting Works. Ladies and gentlemen, with me at this time, Rob Kowalski is with us, man. Thank you for joining us on Audio Airstrike, man. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity, Everett. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, no problem, man. So I just wanted to bring you in because there's a lot of going on. A lot of people are trying to figure things out, and a lot of people are kind of searching for a place of solitude, if that be the case. So one of those situations where, and you've seen it before, I've seen it before, when we come across people, that there's some people that know what they want out of life, and there's some people that don't. They're still trying to figure it out. And one of the things that I've noticed recently within society at times, especially when it comes to sports, we look at LeBron, 4th NBA championship, 17th title for the Lakers organization, and the hate is still real. I look at Tom Brady, multiple time Super Bowl champion. The hate is still real. You're looking at somebody that hated on him.
Right.
Being transparent here. So I look at those two examples, and I've always kind of been fascinated as to why do people hate on greatness so much. Yeah. I've always sat back and wondered that. I always sat back and looked at those two examples and be like, they come with so much hate. It's two different athletes. There's two different ideologies at times. They both got a drive to win and willing to compete at the highest level you can achieve in our generation right now. Why do people hate on greatness so much? Why do we hate on greatness so much when we see it? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I was thinking about our sinful nature. I was thinking about Joel Osteen when you were talking, because I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, follower of Jesus, and people in the Christian world hate on him like no other. But he's the top of the game, right? Joel is reaching millions of people. He's got, books out, huge mega church, but people, man, in the Christian world hate on him. And I guess it's just our sin nature, man. It's almost like people like a comeback, but then once you get there to that place, it's almost like they want to see you fall. I heard somebody talking about Drake not long ago, and his run, like he's had a run like no other artist, no other hip hop artist ever, really. Like he's been on top for so long. So now people are just waiting for him to fall off. It's like, it's kind of sad, right?
It is very sad, because it's like we never want to see how far he can continue and just be at that level. We never want to see a graceful end. We want to see a tragic end.
Yeah.
We love to see tragedy. We love to see drama. We love to see people that are standing with them comment if there's a slope, comment if there's a downfall, comment if there's the end of the line. And it's just kind of sad, man. I think sometimes there's this aura of, I don't feel like I can get to that level, so I'm going to hate on it.
Jealousy. That's what I was thinking.
And it's also, there's a sense of emptiness. Because people don't feel that way about themselves. And this brings back to your jealousy point. It's like when they see somebody else that's achieving all these things, it could lay those roots down for jealousy and hate really quick.
Yeah, I mean, you think about somebody like Whitney Houston, right? Like, people want to see you fall off, but then if you die, they'll be like, "Oh my God, she was the greatest." They'll celebrate you. They'll go to, like, I've had friends that died and weren't doing well, and then everybody shows up at their funeral and wants to talk about you know, how close of a friend they were. And it's almost like a popularity contest, even to be at their funeral, it's like to be seen. And I'm like, well, why weren't you helping them when they were alive? You know, like it has to be something in our flawed human nature, you know, which I just refer to as our sin nature, you know, that we don't, if somebody achieves a level of success, like you said, that we don't think that we could reach, we don't want them to have it because we can't have it.
Yeah, and that's true. It's like a crabs in a barrel mentality, which I've talked about on this show a lot. And it doesn't get anybody anywhere. Like I've told people, I've sat back with other people that want to do creative stuff or want to do businesses or something like that. And I said, look, there are certain moments that require you where instead of going at this person as a competition, figure out ways to help each other and both grow.
Yeah.
Like it's going to do more damage if you have creative people or business people or partners being at each other's throats than if you guys just came together. And if you guys can't come together, just give him the respect. You guys do your thing, but just give the people the respect each other of not taking a crap on each other and, you know, talking nasty to each other.
Right.
But we fail as a society so many times doing that because we just can't help but to feel, in a weird, sick way, we feel better taking a crap on somebody else.
Oh,
we
yeah.
Feel better. Yeah.
So easy to gossip. Gossip is the easiest thing to do. They say small minds talk about people. Right. You know, average minds talk about events. Great minds talk about ideas. Yeah. The lowest form of communication is just gossip because you're talking smack about them because it makes you feel superior.
But in a weird way, yeah, I definitely agree with that. But in a weird way, you're bringing them more attention. In a weird way, you're bringing 100%. Them more attention. You're bringing them more notoriety. If you really didn't like the person, you wouldn't be talking about them.
Right. Dick Vitale used to say, half the people love me, half the people hate me, but everybody knows me.
Right. That's how it is. And I feel like with LeBron and everything that he's dealing with, and it was an Instagram post earlier where he is basically along the lines of, look, I hear all the noise. You know, heavy is the crown that I wear on my head, basically is what he was saying in the post. And he wasn't referring himself as like a God complex, but it was like, I know the position that I'm in. I know that people are envious of it. I know that I catch flack for some of the stuff that I do and I stand for and I say. So I might as well just carry on and keep on doing what I'm doing. And that says a lot to his work ethic, especially when you look at what he's done. He's broken records. I'm not going to get into, is he better than this person from this era or that era? Because that could be a whole conversation for a whole nother show. But he's done so many great things, and whether anybody likes it or not, he's a great ambassador for the league.
Yeah.
He keeps his nose out of, you know, crazy business. You're never going to see him you never heard of him in a scandal. One of the biggest things that I can take away from him in terms of his work ethic, what he's able to do, what he contributes to the game, is his constantly willing to adjust to different types of people. He leads differently in terms of, you know, back in the day, Jordan would be a drill sergeant. Kobe was a drill sergeant. LeBron is maybe not a drill sergeant, but he's more of a motivator and the type of person that will encourage his players in a very different way than they did. Because he's aware of that generation and what that generation, the language of that generation, I should say. So when you sit back there and look at the lessons that we can take away from him in terms of his work ethic that could inspire others to be great, you got to respect that. What are some other lessons you've seen with LeBron or people that are on that level like him in other sports?
I mean, I was just thinking when you were talking, I was thinking about Lamar. You're wearing that Ravens hat.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, nobody wants to see Lamar fall off, you know? I mean, it's at some point when you're up there for too long, then they want to see you fall. Like nobody would want to see Lamar fail now, I don't think. You know, like now maybe some of his peer, like people that are like on teams that are our opponents, maybe want to see him fall. But it's, like most people are kind of rooting for him. And I'm a big fan of his because he refuses to play victim. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares, work harder. I have a sweatshirt. That was his saying. I love it. He's like, I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for myself because I didn't get picked higher in the drafts. Maybe I should have, maybe I shouldn't, but nobody cares. I'm just going to work harder. Come back, win the MVP the next year. I mean, like, I got so much respect for that cat, because that's what it's about. There's a great book I read by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. And it says, every adversity has a seed of an equal or greater benefit. That's one of the quotes from it. And it's true. Whatever your adversity is, every adversity has the seed of an equal or greater benefit. It's hard because you have to find it and then you have to work. It's easy just to cry about it. It's easy just to, use it as an excuse and play victim. And that's your way out to not doing this or that because you have this challenge, But you can look at people all throughout history, born Helen Keller. I mean, damn, born deaf, dumb, and blind. She used it to her benefit, It's just hard. But it's the person that you become in the process, of using that adversity to your benefit. That's really the point of it. But I don't know if I got off into that.
No, I mean, but it's definitely a key point, because when you have a player that takes responsibility for his actions, he never makes an excuse. He turns around and uplifts his team the way that he needs to. It's one of those situations where you look at the situation and go, well, my goodness, like, what else is he going to do? Mm-hmm. Like, what else is capable of doing? Where is his potential leading? And when I sit over here and I look at, what he is capable of doing in terms of uplifting teammates, and I'm talking about Lamar's doing that now. LeBron is currently doing that now. Kobe, rest in peace to Kobe. He did that to a certain extent. It was a different method, but he did it. You look at, I could just go a list of names. Ray Lewis. You can look at Cal Ripken. You can look at even Michael Phelps. I could go on a list of different athletes that did different things to inspire people. When you look at the work ethic, it will inspire greatness, and also it will cause people to embrace it as well. Because greatness is little things done over a short period of time. Little things done every single day, every single minute, every single second, that's done on a repetitive basis that actually adds benefit to you over a long period of time. You know what I mean? The number of times, you put in the 10,000 hours. Some people are putting more in than their 10,000 hours in, just so they can be the masters of their field. Now, when we get to role players, and the reason why I'm bringing up role players is this. We understand that not everybody is supposed to be the star of the show. It's life. We understand that. Everybody has a role to play. Rob, I want to get your thoughts on this. When we sit back and look at J.R. Smith or, Danny Green, smaller role players that are not necessarily in the spotlight like AD and LeBron, what lessons do you take away from a role player that may not be in that spotlight, but he is still considered a champion just as much as the stars of the show? What are some lessons? What
are some lessons that we can take away from role players versus stars of the show?
Yep.
I mean, the number one thing that comes to my mind is just your ego. You have to have a very healthy ego to be a role player, especially if you're going to play with somebody with that level of talent. I was just thinking about Scottie Pippen. He's the first person that came to mind. I just watched that series on Netflix. What was it called? Do you remember?
The Last Dance.
Last Dance, right? I couldn't pull it up, but yeah, that was. I appreciated the episodes on Scotty and how he was just a humble dude, and even even as far as how much money he made, he was willing to accept, which I think he went on later. He regret it, but yeah, he was the best example of a role player out there. And I think that obviously Jordan brought his game up, made him a better player. But like Jordan even said that he wouldn't have been who he was without Scottie. Mm-hmm. So I would say ego, man. You got to be willing to have a very healthy ego to play with somebody like that, because they're gonna have the attention, and you got to be okay with that.
Yeah, and also the thing about that is that not everybody can handle that level of spotlight. You may think you want it. You may think you want the perks that come with being in the spotlight. You think that there's special achievements of being a public figure and this and that, and you want to be the mic, the man. But there's a pressure and there's a certain reputation that comes with that. And you have to keep your head on a swivel. Like if you are going to be in front and that's the thing about leaders. Certain leaders are going to get that spotlight. There are other leaders that we may never hear about. We may never hear their name. We may never see it in the spotlight as much, but they are a great leader in the background, making sure that things happen, making sure that things work. And they may never get the world praising them, but trust and believe that person that's in the spotlight is praising that person behind the scenes for all their hard work. Mm-hmm. So just because the world may not give you the thanks, and just because the world may not give you your flowers, that doesn't mean that somebody won't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those things when we sit over here and we talk about leadership, being a role player, and, being the star of the show. These are the nuances and the things that happen to go on. I think that one of the issues that a lot of people struggle with is finding the greatness within themselves. I think the biggest hurdle that we run into is us battling what's in between our two ears. A lot. Because it is, I've seen people wear themselves out by battling the thoughts in their own head, thinking they're insignificant, and they don't realize that's not true. They're thinking that their position doesn't matter when that's not true. Them thinking that they're not, they're not what they're worth. That's not true. The mind is if you don't work out your mind to be like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not thinking that. I'm moving this over here. This is what I'm focused on. Then you're going to run into issues. And I think that's the thing that kind of trips up a lot of people. Is we get so focused on trying to figure out our self-worth instead of just let me pursue. I'm just going to focus on pursuing what I want. And if I fail a couple times, cool, but I still want to pursue what I'm called to do, because if I just stay idle, I'm not accomplishing anything. I'm just going to be in my head a lot, and I'm never going to get anything done.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things. It's happened to me personally in my life. I could assume you've been around the block more times than me. I ain't trying to call you old.
I'm sure I have.
Right. But it's one of those situations where, it's like this constant heavyweight, 15-round bout with your mind where you have to, there could be like multiple times throughout the day, you're sitting over here being like, trying to talk yourself in even as you're doing it, trying to get rid of that fear of doubt. You're not going to amount to anything, getting those voices out of your head, all this type of stuff. Anything that ain't positive. So, feel free to share, Rob, about some of the, kind of like the battle from within.
Yeah. What's worked for me, and that's all I can really speak to, is, man, it's so important to know what God says about you, and it's not religious, because I'm not religious. I throw big parties. I did the biggest New Year's Eve party in Baltimore. I did the Drew Hill show at the casino. I know Jesus is who he said he was, and I have a relationship with him and God. But it's so important to know what God says about you, because if you can start thinking all kinds of shit about yourself, that ain't true, that you ain't worth anything, nobody loves you or whatever. So it's important to see what God says about you and then get into agreement with that. And then take the word for what it says. So like when I started doing that, standing on the promises of God, man, I started believing, okay, all kinds of things that I was capable of that I would have never believed before having a relationship with God, because I just believed that the Bible was true. I believed that what he said was true, and I was going to do my best to stand on it. So, for me, what really, really helped me figure out who I was and figure out my passion, my gift was, and this is going to sound crazy, but it ties in to what we're talking about, was I stopped having sex with my girlfriend because God was convicting me. I was having sex outside of marriage. Me and my girlfriend, we had a really terrible relationship. We had broken up a bunch of times. And all I knew is God was telling me to stop. He was making me feel guilty about it because I was getting back into church, working on my relationship with him. So I was like, all right. I said, I prayed a really simple prayer. And I said, look, God, I'm going to try this your way again, because I'd already done it once. I did it for 6 years, actually, and I fell off. I said, I'm going to try this your way. I said, and if I'm in love, I want you to convince me and I'll marry her, because I wasn't sure if I was in love. I thought maybe at the time. And I said, if I'm not in love, I want you to help us break up. I said, because obviously we can't do it ourselves, because we had broken up probably 10 times. So I went to my girlfriend. I said, look, I'm not sure if we're built to last. I said, but the way we're going to find out is we're going to stop having sex. And if we both become convinced that we're in love, we'll get married. I said, but if we become convinced that we're not in love, let's stop wasting each other's time. So she agreed reluctantly, but we stopped having sex. And within about 3 weeks, it was like the clouds parted and we broke up. It was completely clear to me that we weren't in love at that point. Up until then, I wasn't sure, because all the sex made me feel like I was in love. So my point in saying all that is, it was after I got obedient in that area so at that point I was like, okay, I'm going to be obedient. God's telling me not to have sex outside of marriage. Sounds crazy. I get it. It sounds extreme. But I was like, I'm going to be obedient to this thing, this idea, this commandment, for lack of a better term. And man, you'd be surprised at all the shit you can get done when you're not chasing tail. Mm-hmm. Because that's a lot of energy. And that goes back to that book, Think and Grow Rich. There's a concept that I referenced in my book called sex transmutation. Sexual energy is the strongest form of all human energy, and it can be redirected and channeled into other means besides just physical expression. So if you're not out busting nuts, chasing girls, you can get a lot done with your sexual energy. It's like he compared it to like a dam. Like you could dam a river, and the water's going to build up, and then eventually it's going to find an outlet, and then it's going to go. And that's what happened to me. It's how I started my nonprofit. I wrote a couple of books. I went on a world tour speaking. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff in the last 9 years. But before that, when I was having sex, I had no idea what my purpose was. So I believe, you gotta believe what God says about you. And then you gotta harness that sexual energy if you want to know why you're here, and then take all that energy and start working on it. And then when you meet a woman that you're willing to go all in on, not a woman that you just want a piece of ass from. Mm-hmm. That woman that you're willing to go all in and marry. At that point, then that's when you get the woman. That's when it becomes the icing on the cake. There's a verse in the Bible. It talks about when you're sexually immoral. He compares it to being godless, like Esau. And if anybody out there knows the story of Jacob and Esau was the older brother of Jacob, and he had the birthright. That was what it was. He had double the blessing. So one day he comes in, he's hungry. Jacob's making stew, and he trades his birthright for a bowl of stew. So that verse tells us when you're sexually immoral, it says you're godless like Esau. You trade your birthright for a bowl of stew. You basically trade something permanent, which I believe is your purpose and the person to help you accomplish it, for something temporary, which is a piece of ass. And that's what I believe. That's why there's a quote by Henry David Thoreau. It says, "Men live lives of quiet desperation." It's because we don't like to do it in the right order, because nobody wants to wait anymore. We want to find the woman because we're horny, So we want to, find someone to have sex with before we find our purpose. And then we never discover our purpose because we never harnessed our sexual energy long enough to figure it out. So then we just sit there with the wrong person in a marriage that we're not happy in, and we're not living our purpose. And we feel this gnawing sense that we're here to do something and we don't know what it is. And it drives us crazy. So we watch football and basketball to escape the fact that we don't like our lives. That's reality. And if you look at Adam and Eve, man, it's the same pattern. Adam did not get Eve when he was created. A lot of people think they were created at the same time. They weren't. Read it. God created Adam, and then you know what he gave him? He gave him a job. He said, name the animals. So Adam named the animals. And then he created Eve, and you know what the first words that Adam said when he saw Eve? Finally! Exclamation point. Finally. So he waited a while. Some people believe he could have waited 1,000 years or longer. We don't know. But men, now, if you really want to know your purpose, you need to stop having sex, get obedient in that area of your life, harness that sexual energy, see what God says about you, use that energy to further your whatever it is that you feel like you're supposed to do, and then be willing to go all in on that helpmate to help you accomplish that thing. Don't take the sex early, or you'll get caught in a sex trap, because that's what we want to do. We go, I don't know if I want one, I might want 10. And next thing you know, you get stuck with that one. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you knew you were only going to get one of anything, how much would you evaluate it in advance? A lot. You would study it. If you were only going to get one car for the rest of your life, you would be like, I'm going to make damn sure it's the car I want, because I'm only getting one. We don't want to think about it. We go, well, maybe I want 10. Maybe I want 20. I don't know. And then you don't evaluate it, but then you get stuck with it. Because that's true. That's what sex does. It's called oxytocin. There's a hormone released. It's like glue. It makes you stick to that person. Next thing you know, you're looking at other women thinking maybe I can be happier with somebody else, but you're with this one. And you might want to be free, but then again, you don't want nobody else to sleep with her, or you're going to get jealous if she leaves you reel her back in, which has happened to me in all my relationships before I figured this shit out. And that's real, man. So like, if people want to know their purpose and really self-actualize and become their best version of themselves, nothing more important than getting obedient in that area. I honestly believe that.
I could definitely get with that, man. I think that, and I'm glad you went down this road, because I figured, why not? So I know that you wrote a book called Why Waiting Works.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of pick your brain about this. I have friends of mine that actually waited. Kudos to them. And they're in a stable marriage, got everything. Everything is working out pretty good. Is it perfect all the time? Do couples argue? Of course they do.
Right, sure.
But they search it and they work it out. They fix things and they work it out. Now, for somebody who necessarily isn't Christian, and this is where I want to pick your brain about, because I'm Christian as well. This is something I want to pick your brain about. How can somebody who is not Christian follow that same principle? Because I feel like, as a Christian and as somebody who has been exposed to that understands that is not super religious, but I'm a follower of God as well.
Sure.
I get where you're coming from, because I'll be honest, I'll be transparent on here. I've seen so many people get into complicated situationships, heavy situationships. They don't realize it. No protection. Kid gets involved. Gets even more messier. They're not even together. Or they're still talking about that person 2 years, 5 years after they already broke up with them.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? I'm just pulling different situations. I don't want no smoke with nobody. I just know from personal experience of what I've seen.
Yeah, so that's 100% right there. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's how do you tell your friend that isn't, because I've had those conversations and they've asked me questions, be like, well, Everett, how come you, because I've seen too many people get caught up early in the exact thing you're talking about. You don't know what you want. Why would you do something that is the epitome of, that's something you share with somebody you love. Hold off on that. No. Yeah. They go the complete opposite route. I'm not shaming nobody, but I'm just saying I've seen a lot of, it's brought concern to me because I'm sitting over here looking at the situation and going, like, do y'all not see the pattern of dysfunction that comes along with this? If, like, it was like domino effect. Like, this person was having problems. That person was having problems. This person over here was having issues. So when I saw all this, it was like I've given the advice. I'm trying to tell him, like, but I feel like because of what my background was, I guess because that was kind of the barrier.
Sure. Where
they understood where I was coming from, but because they didn't grow up in the same household I grew up in, that it only went so far. That advice, I guess in their mind, the advice, some of that went through, but it's still a thin piece of glass there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You hearing what I'm saying, but there's still, you ain't catching everything I'm saying because I'm speaking through, So I wanted to ask you this. How would you personally address somebody who's not Christian at all, not religious at all, the same principle?
No, I love it. So I made a video called 10 Reasons Not to Have Sex Before Marriage, posted on YouTube, and it went viral. Still the number one video in the world on the subject, I think. It's got like 1.6 or 7 million views. And I was all practical reasons because I didn't want to explain it from a religious standpoint because I believe it's good for anybody. So, if people aren't, you don't have to be a Christian to work out, right? The reason that the people work out and they put themselves through the pain of going to the gym and exercising or dieting or whatever it is because they understand that there's going to be a payoff. The thing is with sex is people don't understand it. They don't understand how it's practical to wait and that there will be a payoff, right? Because honestly, when I started down this journey, the only reason I started was because I became a Christian. I had no comprehension of waiting. To me, it was dumb. I was like, why? It's two human beings, consensual, making each other feel good. Why is this a sin, God? I prayed. I asked him. And I started to figure it out, though, after years of abstinence, because I was honestly waiting because I was doing it for selfish reasons, thinking God would give me a wife if I didn't sin long enough. And I started to understand it. And, all you have to do is look at delayed gratification, man. It's a universal principle that's true in every area of our lives. Everybody understands it when it comes like, oh, you want to buy a house? Can't spend money when you want to spend money. Oh, you want to get an education? Well, you got to stay home and study when your friends are out partying. Like, people get it on health and fitness. It's clear. People don't want to hear it when it comes to sex, but it's the truth. If you want a happy relationship, if you don't want to be one of the 50% divorce rate, let's be honest, 97% of the people in this country do not wait. 50% divorce rate. Do you think there's a correlation? I damn sure do. 50% of the people that stay married, the other half, stop having sex after year 4. They stay together for the kids and for finances. So that now they're in a marriage that they're not even happy in. They're not having sex and they're stuck. It's called the sex trap. Me, I don't want that. I want to do something different. 6% divorce rate for people that wait. 6%, 94% success rate. Because what happens is you think with a clear head. I don't know. I mean, look, I've done this wrong my whole life up until. So at 6 years after I became a Christian, I waited. Again, not understanding the principle. I fell back into it, called backsliding and Christianity. But I rededicated my life 9 years ago. And for the most part, I've been waiting ever since. And, I want to have more. I want to have more sex. I want to have a great relationship. I want to fulfill my purpose. Number one, I want to do what I was created on this earth to do. But I would tell people that aren't religious, man, just look at the numbers. It's all you got to do, because your chances of being happily married, if you go about it the way that everybody else does, is very slim. Because again, 50% divorce rate, and I don't know what percentage of the other 50% are happy, but my guess is it's not that high. So that means your chances of being happily married are pretty slim. The odds are stacked against you. You have to think with a clear head, and you have to go into it. Look, this is what I always pose to people, because this is something that they get. If you were dating a girl and you're like, I think I love her, right? So I tell people, no sex before marriage. Sounds extreme, right? I said, what about no sex before love? Can you get down with that? Most people go, okay, that sounds reasonable. But no sex before marriage might be too extreme for them. But no sex before love is something that they can understand. And I said, okay, well, how do you know if you're in love? Because if I was dating a girl and I said, I love you, and she says, I love you too, Rob, let's just run down to the justice of the peace real quick, get married. I'd be like, damn, let me think about this a little longer. Right? That's the point. Because now I'm going to find out if my heart's lying to me. Because the Bible says the heart's deceitful. So I might trick myself into believing I'm in love with a girl just so I can get some tail. But now you introduce marriage into the conversation. Now I'm going to find out if I'm lying to myself. Because as bad as I want the pleasure of sex, I equally don't want the pain of divorce. So now I weigh it. And I'm like, ooh, and honestly, it's helped me avoid a lot of situationships over the last 9 years. Because there's been plenty of girls that have came along that I would have liked to sleep with. But I always said to myself, would you sign the marriage contract? And I went, nope. I could recognize right up front that was not what I wanted long term. Before, I would have slept with them, drifted into a relationship, and then been looking over my shoulder at other girls, wondering if I could be happier with them, wondering what was wrong with me. Why can't I force myself to be in love with this girl? Because she wasn't the one from the jump. So now that's it. It's that simple. It's not easy. It's super difficult because you got to learn how to manage that appetite. But again, man, like I wouldn't be the man that I am today if I hadn't got obedient in that area of my life. I wouldn't have done all the things that I've done. Like I just became a much better human being, much better son, friend, member of the community because of that one decision. It's a hard decision though, especially for men.
Yeah, especially, man, because the way we are, man, it's like our brain and our heart can tell us two different things, and we could easily be like, all right, but which one am I going to listen to? Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with some people, the brain might be smarter and telling you, look, this is not right. Or the heart's telling you this is, or the heart may be lying to you, like in your situation. You know what I mean? Or it could be reversed for another dude. Where in your mind you think you in love, but your heart, your gut feeling, and between that and your heart is telling you, hey, this isn't the way to go. This isn't the one for you. This is not, what your heart is telling you. That gut feeling, this ain't it. You just, at this point, you just looking at the special features that she has and just going after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a conundrum of, I can tell my friends, yeah, this is the one for me. I can lie to my friends, I can lie to my family, but when it's all said and done and I'm alone and I'm deep in my thoughts, I may get a different answer. I want to get into your story for a little bit. I'm going to let the floor be yours. You tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been through, where you're at now. How did you overcome?
Thanks, man. I appreciate you asking me that. So I was born and raised in Baltimore. My mom was 14 when she got pregnant with me. And, my dad was never in the same state as me and didn't pay child support. So she kind of raised me with an 8th grade education and did her best. But I just kind of ran the streets while she worked and never had a real strong male role model and just really kind of learned how to be a man from watching television and movies. So from a pretty young age, I thought, if I was good with girls, that would validate me as a man. And, my goal or my dream when I grew, the career I wanted to pursue when I grew up was I wanted to be a stripper. From the time I was about 15 years old, that was my dream. I actually found a videotape that my mom and her friends had rented of some Chippendales or something. And I remember seeing it and thinking that's what I want to be when I grow up. So when I was 19, I started stripping for an agency in Baltimore. And then over the course of a couple years, I was stripping for every agency. I was the number one guy. I was in the phone book, like making a bunch of money, having a ton of sex, very popular. But, I started seeing the negative consequence specifically in my relationships with women, because they would always start the same way. We would always start by having sex quickly. And then one of two things would happen. I would immediately lose interest as soon as I busted a nut, or we would drift into a relationship, but it would never be that great. and I would be looking over my shoulder. Eventually I'd be looking at porn. Next thing you know, I'm cheating. That's exactly how it happened with my first girlfriend. We spent 5 years together, and I finally worked up the courage to go home and tell her after 5 years. And I felt smothered in that relationship, but I could not get out of it for some reason. That's what a soul tie is. If anybody knows about the soul ties, but I told her I wasn't in love, and she started crying and I was crying. It was probably the hardest thing I'd ever done up until that point. We broke up about a month later. She started dating somebody else, and it threw me for a freaking loop to the point where I was convinced I had to have her back. I was so depressed. I called her, started messaging her all the time, started pursuing her. Eventually I convinced her to come back to me. She dropped the other guy. She came back to me, and it was amazing for about a week. And then it went right back to the way it started. And I was like, what the hell did I do that for? I was free. And this lasted another year until, again, smothered, and I tell her again, I'm not in love with you. And she's crying. I'm crying. We break up. She starts dating somebody else. The exact same thing happened to me. Got super depressed. This time I was even more depressed than the first time. I literally just went all in. I was like, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. We'll get engaged. I'll quit stripping. I told her I was willing to do whatever. I knew I was caught in something beyond my control, but I had no power over it. And fortunately for me, she didn't come back. She ended up marrying that guy. But after that, I transitioned into club promoting, and I really took over the nightlife in Baltimore for several years. I used to have a company called Jet Set Mafia. A lot of people probably know it if they go out clubbing. We were pretty big. And I was making even more money, and I was more popular and more girls. And, I remember thinking, I'm not going to get caught in that relationship trap again. And until my second relationship, which happened the same way, had sex fast, drifted into a relationship, felt like something was missing, looking over my shoulder. Eventually I'm cheating. And then I just was like, well, something's wrong with me, obviously, because I could not make myself be in love with these girls. I could not convince myself to only have eyes for them. I wanted to be in love, and I could not force it. And I just thought, well, maybe human beings aren't supposed to be monogamous. I don't know. Or maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm not a one-woman man. All these different ideas. And I didn't know what the reason was until I heard God's voice for the first time. And he told me, if you start doing relationships my way, you'll be able to find love. And to me, it was a radical realization, because I never considered that the problem wasn't me. It was how I started every relationship I ever got into, because I wasn't even looking at them. The only thing I was looking at was this: is she physically attractive? Why? Because I knew I was going to have sex with her at some point, sooner or later, probably sooner. So I didn't need to know anything else besides, is she hot? I didn't need to know all the other stuff that you would ask if you knew you were only picking one.
Right.
So here I was wasting years with the wrong girls. So, once I made that decision, I just took all that sexual energy, like I mentioned, and I just put it back into myself, and really just becoming the best version of me, and figuring out what in the hell I was on this planet for. And that, was why I believe that really there's no sin like that has the potential to wreck your life like sexual sin. It really has the potential to steal your potential from you if you don't get a harness on it. And there's so much confusion around it, which is why I wrote the book, Why Waiting Works, because I want people to understand that it's a practical decision. And this is how it's going to play out for real, if you don't do it. And this is going to help play out probably if you do it, if you get obedient in this area. So, I've been blessed, been able to travel and talk to, schools and churches about it. My book won Baltimore Sun's best book for Reader's Choice poll last year. So yeah, it's been good. It's been a fun journey, but no one would have ever been able to convince me that this would be my path when I was a stripper. You know what I mean? Yeah,
absolutely, man. It's crazy how things work out in the path that you're on, but also the knowledge that you gain from your journey. Yeah. And the fact that you can empower and help somebody else. Real quick, I want to spend just a minute or two talking about just plug Cityfam. I see that all over Sure. And I know you do a lot of stuff in the community. So if somebody wanted to be a part of that, what are you guys all about?
Yeah, man, thanks. Really, it was based off of the fact that when I got serious about becoming this better version of myself, I got really bored and lonely. A lot of my pastime was chasing women, going to the bars, chasing girls. And when I put that off to the side and I really started working on myself, I was like, cool. Okay, now what do I do for fun? Because I was sitting at home every Friday and Saturday by myself. I thought the people at my church were very nice, but a lot of times they were super boring, So I was looking for a group of people that I could relate to that were enjoying life, and I just couldn't find it. So that's why I said when the first 6 years I was abstinent, I isolated, and then I backslid because I just needed to be around people again. I needed a social life. So when I rededicated after backsliding, I went through the exact same period, and I realized, man, this is a major obstacle. If somebody's trying to become a better version of themselves, they shouldn't have to sit at home every weekend with nothing to do. A lot of people get into relationships at this time. People trying to quit drinking, they get into a relationship, but a lot of times they date out of loneliness, and that isn't a great long-term solution because that will play out sooner or later. I always compare dating out of loneliness to grocery shopping while you're hungry. So for us, for me, Cityfam has just been that community that I want to go out and have a good time. I want to turn up a little bit, but I also don't want to do something I regret on Monday. So it's kind of like a fun, relatable group of people that are pursuing long-term goals, but also enjoying life in the process. So yeah, we do volunteer, but we do a lot of social events too. Like we're going roller skating Friday night, 80s roller skating party. I got a big Halloween party at Bassignani Winery. I do a big New Year's Eve party. We have a really good time, but we're all about community too. Like, hey, let's not do stuff to divide us. Meaning if I take advantage of you, if I'm greedy, you're probably you're going to move away from me.
Facts. If
I sleep with a girl that I'm not really interested in long-term, I might have fun for a night, but I'm probably going to lose her as a friend sooner or later. So we're all about trying our best not to separate ourselves, because that's where the magic is, man. The magic is in community. When you have a large group of friends that care about you, man, that's when life takes on new meaning, and you can achieve your long-term goals because now everybody's kind of pitching in to help each other. So we try to think about it like that. And I really believe we're all connected, even going back to what you said about wanting to see people, that are at the top fall off. I think the human race, we're all connected in some weird way. So if we're doing things to violate, like selling drugs or, sleeping casual, having casual sex and just sleeping with girls and create more broken women for the next guy to take care of, that is hurting you somehow. That's what I honestly believe. So I'm sorry, that's a long answer, but Cityfam is, fun without regret. That's what we call it. Fun without regret. Friends with better benefits. That's another term that we use.
I like that.
Anybody can become a member. They go to cityfam.com. Man, we have a good time, but we also are about becoming the best version of ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, definitely I can get with that. Rob, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on. I definitely appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out his book, Why Waiting Works. It is on all bookstore platforms, wherever you can get it, digitally or hard copy. Get in contact with Rob Kowalski, and he will make sure he gets that to you in some way, shape, or form and point you to the right direction. Rob, first of all,
let me just mention, people can pick up a free copy at whywaitingworks.net.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And a ton of other bonuses that come along with it. So, yeah, check that out.
All right, awesome, man. So y'all heard it. Y'all ain't got no excuse now. There you go. Well, Rob, first of all, I want to thank you for coming out and being a part of this episode. I definitely appreciate the jewels and definitely appreciate you coming through and enlightening a lot of minds on the direction that they need to go. I definitely appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you having me on, Everett. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another edition of Audio Airstrike. We will be back next week, folks. Y'all take care.